Hey everybody, Daniel here from BorgPad. Pleasure to be here for actually this very first episodes that we're calling Defying the Norms. And today we're here with Louis, CEO of XBorg, for a very, very good reason, because XBorg did a TGE very recently. It was end of August. And since then, a lot has happened. The way XBorg has done their TGE really defies everything that the space and the current meta goes for. So Louis, thank you for being with us. Pleasure to have you on board, and looking forward to just discussing a bit with you how you've done things, how it differs, and what you've learned from it.
Yeah, thanks so much, Daniel, for having me. Great pleasure to discuss with a bright mind leading BorgPad today, which I think is a very great value prop for the space, and discuss about how we've done things at XBorg. I still do think it's quite early, but we are trying to shape up a new narrative, which, as you said, really goes against the current meta of VC-led tokens that pay huge fees to go on exchanges. And yeah, really excited to share the knowledge we've acquired along the way.
Nice. Well, Lou, to kick things off, I think the saying, an image says more than 1,000 words. So I want to start with an image that's quite striking, in my opinion. We took the liberty to collect a bit of data. So this is starting on CoinGecko listings, so it might not be directly TG, but a close proxy too. And we compared essentially you guys to anybody else that TG'd in gaming in 2024. And the graph is as the one you see on the screen. Your CMO now, Connor, which is a good friend of mine as well, and he's a bit of a legend, he said the whole campaign was about fuck sexes, fuck MMs, and fuck VCs. Tell us about what that means and how that translates into the graph we see today in front of us.
Yeah, like when speaking to virtually like all founders, and when you talk about TGE, they all think of the conventional path, which is that you have to list on an exchange, and same goes with fundraising. It's to fundraise with VCs and business angels and not look at other options. Obviously, when you list on an exchange, you have to have market makers. And we thought super hard since the very first days of XBorg on how can we not follow the original playbook, but really try and write our own playbook, which we think is net positive for us as a team, for the community, and for the token. We've essentially engaged in listing conversations from March to July of this year. And then, we've essentially looked at your graph and said, well, with the current playbook, there's nothing that performs. The current market structure is very predatory. It's very hard to navigate for a founder. And so, I thought to myself, what if the current playbook is just wrong? And it seems like the token performance of virtually any recent launches has shown that it might not be the best. And so we came to the conclusion that the old playbook is not valid anymore, or at least there's an opportunity for a new playbook. And we've decided to play on that narrative quite a bit. And so on the marketing side, for us, it was really for people to see that XBG, which is XBorg's token, is not just one of 1,000 tokens. It's a token that, well, is trying to defy the norm. And I'm trying to take your slogan here and do things differently. And so that's why we said, F market makers, F VCs, and because that's how we've done it. So yeah.
Okay, so maybe before we go into your playbook and how you've done things, the things everybody wants to hear about, but let's quickly take a moment to first understand how we got here in the context. I think usually that's really helpful for everybody involved. Tell me, what's wrong today with the current meta, with the current playbook? What's wrong with low float, high FDV? How does it affect things like control of your tokenomics and even control, over potentially once you list on the order flow? But maybe start with tokenomics. what does it mean to having to give out so much tokens to all these external players? And
crypto is a lot about community, and usually the way you build a community after your token launches is by leaving some upside potential to the token, because obviously no one likes to lose money. Everyone likes to gain money, but today's framework leaves very little room for upside. The way it is, it's you have super inflated valuations at TGE, and just retail money is essentially serves as exit liquidity. And what we're doing here that's I guess pretty unique is most of what we've done is we're actually 100% community funded. So community capital is what made XBorg, and and I guess the way you make it happen is leaving a ton of upside to your community, and I guess then it's just a lot smoother after this.
Okay, so clearly, I think one of the, if I can take your words and kind of recapitulate them, what you're saying is one of the false assumptions until now in the current meta was that project thought that TG success meant listing strategy. The distribution of a token it's the priority on, and I need to make sure that I secure CEXs, because in 2017, 2021, if you said that your token was going to be listed on Binance or one of the big ones, that meant an immediate pump, right? We've seen that today that's no longer the case. And you saying, if I don't go, so because we actually had a look at, the famous article that Arthur Hayes published a couple of days ago, he goes through how much it costs to actually list on CEXs. We got it here somewhere. Let me put it up. Essentially, we did our own research. He claims that Binance would take close to 18% of your supply, plus you need to buy a ridiculous amount of their BNB and stake it as a security deposit, so to speak. I know that you've been in conversation with big CEXs as well, not Binance, but perhaps another one that starts with a B. And if I need to give 16% of my supply to Binance plus some to market makers, how does then that affect my community and those that actually are there to support me for the right reasons?
Yeah, well, we did engage with all of the CEXs, and they all have very tough terms. And the thing is, you have to look at crypto as a zero-sum game. And so if someone extracts sort of value from you, that means he's taking value from somewhere else. And community is I guess, where the value is being taken today. So and that's why we came to that decision of going our own ways. The CEXs were asking for a ton, which we knew was bad for upside potential of community, was bad for our own treasury, because that's you're taking a big cut on your runway, and overall, like it's like you're paying a lot, but the old playbook it just doesn't work anymore. And I think that's also why Arthur wrote that piece on alternative solutions, is because as a founder you're paying a lot, but for something that's really not worth it. Now I'm not saying that exchanges do not matter, but I'm saying that in current market structure, or you have so many altcoins that get released, the excitement that one gets in a new token launch is little to none. Like there is no hypes at a token launch, and that means that the underlying, so like the exchange venue or like the trading venue, they're not bringing you additional buyers. And so you really have this burden. If you sit down and do a list of what it costs me, like actual cost and implied cost of doing so, and opportunity cost via the actual benefits, you'll see that the balance is very slim. At least, like I think one can argue for Coinbase and Binance, but for the rest, it clearly does not play out in your favor.
And would you say that there's a difference? Because okay, you clearly went F all these people, we're going to raise only from our own community. How do you think, if you look at it from a, I guess, stickiness of capital perspective, what would be the advantage, or have you seen a difference between a community and a widely distributed kind of Gini coefficient on your token compared to giving a whole bunch to very few players that might be more sophisticated?
Yeah, it's I think to me it's freedom to do what we want and freedom to do what we think is right. So I spoke to many teams that have huge VCs backing them, which is totally fine. It's just then they're less flexible. There are some VCs that come in that also have market making agreements. So that means when they buy in, you have the obligation to have them as market maker, and they will push you to be on exchanges. So a great thing about a community, one is the freedom to do what you want and what you think is best. VCs have very different interests from the team, and they're purely here for from a return perspective. So that's why we went like no VC route. Now the great thing about the community is obviously everyone is here for money. Crypto is a very that's like a financial game. So everyone is here for money. We can't neglect that. But I think as a community member, you're also here for a journey, which one can be very emotional, and you're here to co-build a product with a team that you think is a great team to execute on the vision. And so you have, to me, what seems to be, if you have actual great community members, they have a very long-term view. And they're just here for the ride, I suppose. And so a clear example of that is only 4% of our community sold to date. And the average buy price of our community, now, I mean, virtually all of our average, if we look at the average entry price into our token from the private rounds that we did with our community, people today are up 4x and only 4% sold, which I think is a very different outcome than if a VC were to have bought into the token. I think, and we'll discuss a bit more about our playbook, but I think raising with our community also meant there's a huge sense of trust between the community and us. So much so that today we've unlocked 100% of community invested tokens, which is about 12.5% of our supply, and we've unlocked it at TGE on day one.
That's amazing. So I think that before we go on to the actual playbook, I would just want to pick your brain, because we actually spent some time probably intellectually masturbating this, but to some degree. But we came up with this idea of a community stickiness effect. The idea behind it is very, very simple, and I think it speaks to what you're saying. If you put yourself in a position where you are a community member who might invest a ticket of $100 or $1,000 into a project like BorgPad, if the project goes up 20%, even 100%, 200%, that difference, that net return will not change your life. So communities, they have not only a horizon that's much further out, but the elasticity is kind of much higher as well. Whereas if you look at a VC, for instance, who may have to appease LPs and need to roll over some of their capital, invest in new projects, if they invest $1 million or 500K, and that makes up 20% or goes up 100K, 100%, that return is significant enough to actually take profit. So our kind of idea was that the more you can distribute your token amongst many individual stakeholders, the stickier that supply will be, and won't be affected as much by incremental price increases. Is that something you've experienced? Well, I'd love to have your take on this.
Yeah, I think we're all into crypto because we believe that crypto brings a superior value prop than fiat, and that we believe to some degree the current financial system is broken, and that currency debasement, etc. It's not a topic for today, but we believe that we're creating our own system that's much better than the traditional system. And you know, I think raising a lot from VCs actually go against that. And so I find that the community is very excited that it's the people that make money here at XBorg. It's not the VCs. It's really like the big boys are not making money, and it's the community that does. And so there is that feeling that, you know, we are in it together. We all believe in the project. There is no entity that's going to be here and extract massive value. And I think this is what makes it super special.
Amazing. So let's go straight into it. You've launched a token in August of this year. Huge anticipation to it. Your XBorg is sister company of SwissBorg, and you have done everything differently. As you said, you went DEX first, TGE only in terms of fundraising, and today you are. There was a correction since yesterday, but you're still up 2.5x on TGE just a few months later, when the rest of the market and your asset class has not done the same. In fact, they've done the opposite. You are literally the definition of defying the norm. Tell us, if you can, what does it mean for you to do the XBorg playbook? What is the XBorg playbook, and how can you help founders understand how to, again, bring value back to the community and use Web3 what it actually is, which is a bottoms-up system and not tops-down?
Yeah, I think, well, one, we have to stay very humble as to what we've achieved so far. We're trying to show a different way for founders. That played out. Now, I also do know crypto can change from one day to the other. So we're just very happy with what we've done so far, and I'm more than happy to share what we've done. I think first is just a mindset. Mindset of trying to think outside the box. Might seem just silly, but it's a lot of founders, just as I said earlier, they're trying to follow the same playbook. And so a playbook is, you know, you build a deck pretty early, you approach VCs, VCs get you money, and then you build your products. You don't really care too much about your community. You know it's important, but it's not vital. And then you go on to have market-making agreements, and then you list on an exchange. And so the first playbook of XBorg is not taking the past as granted, and really have day one thinking on how you think is the best approach. And that leads us to a couple of things. One, rethinking about vesting and lock. Market conditions have clearly showed us that it is super hard for a project to have more marginal buyers than marginal sellers. And so what this means is every day you'll have more people that are willing to sell than to buy. And so as a consequence of that, your token goes down. And so we thought, what prevents us from having a huge sell pressure on day one, but then having no sell pressure on day two and day three? And we thought that this is a much superior alternative to the current structure, because it not only gives you much less, in fact, no marginal buyer, no marginal sellers on day zero, because if like on day one, everyone, I guess, could have just sold. And that's also what happened to us. Everyone, I mean, a lot of people sold on day one, but day two, like the future was bright, and you knew that most of the pain is over. So it not only reduces the marginal sellers on day two, but it's also increasing the marginal buyers. A lot of people seem to not understand this, but in the current market structure, or you have a ton of altcoins to choose from, so many options you have, so many great teams, so many great projects. You want to look at the superior alternatives. And me as a buyer, do I want to buy into a project where I know I'm going to get dumped on by VCs that unlock or invest tokens every day? Or do I want to buy into a project where I know most of the pain is over? And so that's why we went the 100% token unlock route for the community, which is like 12.5% of the supply. No, we also had this huge sense of trust with the community. And I think from a community perspective, people do respect that you're doing 100% token unlock, and they view this as a very unique thing, and they feel like they're part of a project that's just very innovative. So that's why we did 100% token unlock, and over the last few days and hours, just had so many calls with founders, and it's great to see this is catching up, because I think part of the reason why people are very frustrated this cycle is not only tokens go down, but also people have this huge vesting, and so every day you see it going down, but you can't recoup your losses, or you have to wait years and months, which only grows your frustration higher. The other thing that we did is no exchanges. Today, there's clearly something broken about exchanges. You pay a huge fee. There is a queue when you approach an exchange that's just so long. You have to wait a ton. They have lot of leverage, and they know they have the leverage, so they will have huge fees, but also other than fees, like actual stablecoin fees, but token fees on top of that. And it's also something that's unspoken, but you have a lot of bribes. Like, it is very common to have the listing teams of big exchanges to be fired, because they understand you have bribes, and it's a very dark place for I guess the crypto industry. And we're trying to stay as far as we can from this. But you've shown the altcoin performance, so you see, and all of them follow the normal playbook, and none of that really works. And saying no to exchanges is also saying no to market makers. We had a lot of articles and news about market makers manipulating the token price, and if market makers are doing business, that's because they are extracting value. Like, they are profitable because they extract value, and that's just the nature of their business, which is completely fine. And they also have a good reason to exist. But if you look at today's market, where you have just a finite amount of marginal buyers, you have to think of how can you reduce as much as possible the marginal sellers. And giving 1-2% of your supply in the hands of an actor that's, I would say, hard to trust and hard to control, to us is a way in which you hedge your sale pressure, and you also have a lot more visibility on the order flow. So you know exactly who's buying and who's selling. Whereas if you have a market maker, everything is sort of, well, most of your supply is in the hands of the market maker and not you. For context, when we were meant to list on a large centralized venue, the centralized venue wanted us to have 5% floats, so 5% of the tokens in circulation, give 1% for launch pool, 1% as bribe, 2% to the market maker, and 1% that was for airdrop. And so what you end up in a situation where you have literally no control over your supply, and you don't really know like what makes your token go up and go. I mean, you do know what makes it go down. It's just you have absolutely no control over this. And I find that market makers in the current environment, they know the market structure a lot more than anybody else, and they know that in the current market, everything goes down. And so it's easy for a market maker to be very aggressive on the sell side initially, because you anyway know it's going to go down, and then buy back on the way down. And I think overall, all of that just leads to very unhealthy practices, which come at the cost of, I think, hurting your community, and which I think today are the most important stakeholders for a token.
Okay, loads of impact here, Louis. I agree with you on the high level on everything that you just mentioned upon. Let me start first with the exchanges. I couldn't agree more with the fact that they served a true purpose, I think, in the previous cycles to onboard this first critical mass of users that are now in crypto, that now run crypto Twitter all day. But there's clearly an asymmetry of power that is become abusive and detrimental to the space. I can only see going forward in the next cycles that there will be a decline in the importance of sexes. To give you a good example, like one of the projects that one of our portfolio companies, I guess, if you want to call it that way, that we've worked on recently, they were adamant on listing on the tier 2 exchange. I'm happy to name it. It was Gate. And Gate were giving them, to make a point on the market makers as well, a requirement of minimum volume per day. So that volume, I think, was about 50,000, which for most smaller projects you might do on day 1, day 2, but it's actually quite hard to sustain, especially in a bear market, day in, day out. So what happens is that essentially you get market makers to fill in those orders, which then obviously they extract the spread, the bid-ask difference, etc. If there's a DEX-X market, they take the arbitrage, so on, which that's fair enough, right? But the whole point is that the listing fee of Gate was essentially based on volume that does not exist at the beginning, because they come to you with a pitch and say, like, list with us and we promise you this much product, volume. But all the volume that is on the exchange is just fake volume. That's actually not, in your own words, marginal real buyers.
It's a big misconception today, and again, it just comes back to this market structure, and why we got to that market structure is a lot of VC funding, especially in gaming, because gaming was the most VC funded sector in 2021. We're just paying the price for it. A lot of VC inflows, and that means most of the projects raised via SAFTs. So an agreement for future tokens, which is how you fundraise there. But all these tokens are going out to the market. And everyone is fighting for mindshare and for new signups, exchanges included. I'm just not confident, unless it's Coinbase or Binance, that any other exchange would bring you new buyers, potentially a bit. But the rest is just it's just a great venue, and I think just exchanges are great. Like it's just something. It's an easy access to crypto, and I think it plays a fundamental role. It's just what they ask for vs what they bring makes so much little sense. And I'm surprised that founders are still still do not want to defy the norm here. And I think much of this comes at reputation. For long, it looked cool to launch on OKX or Bybit or Binance and Coinbase. I think it's less and less the case. But truth be told, like the major concern I had when saying, okay, we need to go DEX, is the community. Is a big saying of 2021, 2022, and still today is like, when listing, when Binance, because the meta of 2021, and we still haven't come to the realization that it's just not working anymore, was that if you launch on an exchange, your token will go up because it opens the gates to more buyers. The thing is, it's just simply not true anymore. Like if we were to launch on OKX tomorrow, I don't think there will be more buyers for the token. And just coming back on the market structure, we see meme coins doing very well. And that teaches us a few things, but one particularly is that if you're willing to buy a token, you're willing to buy it on-chain, because the current retail investors are pretty sophisticated. We haven't come to the part of the cycle where you have, my mom or your mom or my dad that goes into the market and try and buy a token. They are pretty sophisticated. They've been around for at least a cycle, and they're willing to buy on-chain, just like they buy their meme coin. And in fact, like XBG on Solana, yesterday did more volume than, we were like did more volume than like the top three, the fifth biggest meme coin on Solana.
Exactly. So that's actually a beautiful transition, because Louis, I've got two more questions for you before we wrap it up. One of them is the second point that you touched upon, which was community. And just to mention it now, yesterday, correct me if my numbers are wrong, but the last time I looked, it was close to 10 million in intraday trading volume generated on Solana on DEXs only. Well, by SwissBorg as well, but essentially it was settled on DEXs. How do you build community in Web3? I see so many founders who still go for the playbook of doing galaxy quests, giving them a bunch of airdrops. We actually had an exchange on Twitter, you and I, a couple of days ago, where we quickly mentioned that. But what does that kind of behavior actually mean for community building and for creating sustainable demand for your token once you launch it?
The culprit is the exchanges. The exchanges, because everyone's trying to get into exchanges, and then when you speak to an exchange, you'll see they have requirements of number of users for your products, number of community members, and so you have your requirements, and then you just think backwards and how can I get to these requirements as fast as possible. And that's why you do this quest, and that's why like the questing platforms work so well. And you had like PortalCoin was big into SocialFi and all of that. You had a whole wave of projects that followed the same pattern, and they all like down super hard, mostly because you can bootstrap many things, but when it comes to community, it comes down to actual people, and you can't fake your way to building community. Like you have to build a culture. You have to build trust, and trust takes a long time to shape. Like we started back in 2022, and every time being super transparent with the community, and we understood very early on that community is the one thing you need if you're launching a token. Because who's going to buy your token? Your token is going to be, your token buyers are your community. It's not going to be, unless you have an ETF, it's not going to be institutional buyers. It's going to be your community. And you have much less speculation today outside of your community because just no one's buying altcoins today, or just very few.
And the dilution is enormous as well. So it's like being the needle in a haystack. Actually, the best way to stick out these days is by having volume. That's probably one of the easiest metrics to actually be seen. Amazing. So without wanting to take too much time, maybe tell us, we understood that, first of all, you guys put a lot of emphasis on building community. You then took them with you every single step of the way. You won with them. I remember there was early investment opportunities as early as pre-seed or seeds that they could invest with you for the OGs. There was an NFT sale. You did the pre-sale as well, only community-based, and then you distributed your token in a fair way, 100% unlock on DEX only, without having additional, and I'm going to call it uncontrollable, potential sellers that could harm the community building. And you did none of the stupidity, because you had no requirements from the sexes, none of the stupidity that other people do, and be reckless with your token distribution.
It's a lot of people back when SocialFi was a big thing. That was just after PortalCoin. You had block games, you had Param, Bubbles, like a whole bunch of projects, and do respect them, but at the end of the day, the community is very myopic. Sometimes the community and in crypto, people, you have emotions and you want to take some shortcuts, but shortcuts rarely work in the medium term and long term. And I think the community is on board because we've always tried and do things right, or how we think, how we think it should be built, and not how people tell us it should be. When we wanted to list on that exchange, and that was earlier because we wanted to do our TG earlier, we had this person that put us in touch with the exchange, and the person was like, yeah, if you want to go on that exchange, do a SocialFi campaign because it's going to help you boost your metrics. And the truth is, like, every founder gets the same, like, people tell us the same, and the feedback we get from the exchanges are the same. So everyone just does the same thing, and then you just get. I mean, then you get your listing, but then you're out there with a token that's done only, and then it's going to be so much harder for you to build your community back up.
Yeah.
Because, and Mourad touched about that thing. I don't really agree on the meme coin thesis so much, but I agree on one thing: is it's going to be very hard for you to build a community on the way down. Whereas, it's much easier to leave some upside to the community, because I think the way you treat your community speaks a lot about how you want to run your crypto project and token.
Can agree more with that. So, Louis, I think the last question to be asked is, what happens after TGE?
Yeah, TGE is just the first step, really. I think it's because you have so many things that build up to the TGE. Like TGE puts a lot of pressure on founders because your SAFTs are based on TGE, and a lot of things are based on TGE. But people need to look a bit further than the TGE, and I also think that doing it on chain just makes the TGE less of a drastic event. If you do it on a CEX, that means your TGE is like a big cut on your runway, and then that just puts a lot of pressure, because then the team has to sell tokens to recoup the losses from the fees that the exchanges take. Whereas us, it's pretty much stress-free. We're doing our own way, and then stuff is organic. But I guess what's after TGE is one, like understanding how you make your token grow after TGE, and constantly think about how do I get more marginal buyers into my token than marginal sellers. So it's a continuous process of nurturing your token, and there are many things we can discuss. But in short, it's OTC sales is a big thing. Is like targeting you like a different buyer profile, and those could be community members, but those could be institutional players that keep adding liquidity to your project. When you're running a DEX playbook, liquidity is also very important. So it's about how do you sustain good liquidity levels, and how do you incentivize liquidity. And then lastly, but most important, is embedding your token within your ecosystem and having token sinks. I would say that's what's after. I would recommend to teams watching this that as a founder, you need to, if you're committed to launching a token, you need to focus on three things, and irresponding of TG or not, is product, community, and token. So your team needs to be focused on that. If you take your token too lightly, it's very likely that your community will fall apart. And then if your community is not backing you, your product is also not going to be, if it's a Web3 product, it's also not going to be getting traction. So, yeah.
Oh, that's amazing. I think there's so much more to unpack, and maybe we can ask people if they want a second part of this. Couldn't agree more. But when you talk about your token, there's so many questions that come after this, in the sense of, if you don't price your token, what happens for projects that raise on equity and token? How does that affect the focus they have on distributing value on one asset versus the other? And same thing, like, when you talk about your community, it's product distribution is everything. And in Web3, it happened through community and your early missionaries and evangelists that are with you. So if you don't focus on them, you can have the best product in the world in a sense. But it's that I quite like it. This triangle really plays into each other. Better token increases more community, it increases your product adoption, and so on and so on and so on. So there's really flywheel that I see on that point. I think, Louis, I don't want to take too much more of your time. Thank you so much for coming on this today. Maybe we can do another one in the future, talk about the open topics we left. And in the meanwhile, I wish you guys all the very best. Amazing start. I've been in it for a while, and I can't wait what you guys are going to keep up with in the coming months and years. All
right. No, it was great for having me, and yeah, let's keep the conversation going, and happy to have you on a happy to come back for a second episode or discuss all the good stuff.
Amazing. And we know you're doing a document as well that's going to help founders navigate this space a bit more. So hope maybe we'll discuss that.
Yeah, definitely.
Amazing. Thanks so much, Louis.